I'd like to continue my series on gaudy gold-plated watches from the 70s with this Girard Perregaux Gyromatic alarm. Now, based on looks, I'm going to be honest and say if it was just that, I would have never picked this up. The thing about this is it has a very special movement. And the only reason I learned that is through the Watch Pro site / Instagram user Blowman, B-L-O-M-A-N. He's a pretty big JLC collector, and he actually did a write-up on this particular watch a while ago, and I remember stumbling upon it. And the long story short, the thing that makes this watch special is it has a JLC Memovox caliber 916 speed beat movement in it, even though it's a Girard Perregaux. Now, according to his research, the deal with the watch is it was released in 1971, and it came out 350 pieces in gold plate and 350 pieces in stainless steel. Stainless steel is much harder to find now. Retailed for about 450 Swiss francs, which translates to about 1,400 US, give or take, adjusted for inflation. And the thing is, the Gyromatic alarm line for Perregaux had existed for a while, except they used to use bog standard run-of-the-mill Adolf Schild mechanical alarm movements in them. And they're not terribly impressive compared to the other in-house movements. And if you're interested in more of that, I have a bunch of videos in the mechanical alarm playlist where I talk about that and compare them. But the deal with this is, in 1971, they released this Gyromatic alarm with a JLC Memovox movement in it. According to Blowman, apparently JLC and Perregaux at the time had a deal where Girard Perregaux was supplying their quartz movements to JLC, and in return, apparently, JLC had supplied them with these Memovox movements, because by the time in the early 70s, Perregaux was pretty much all into quartz research, so I don't think they had much of a budget to continue developing mechanical movements, even though in the 60s they were really successful in working on high-accuracy mechanical movements, and they regularly participated in the Swiss astronomical chronometer competitions, along with Seiko, as mentioned in the prior video. But in the 70s, I guess they didn't really have that much in the way of resources, so apparently this deal was made. Now, the JLC Speedbeat 916 Memovox movement is in essence the last vintage iteration of the Memovox movement. Now, initially, the Memovox movement was manual wind, then it became, this is a caliber 825, and eventually it became an automatic with a bumper rotor. So when you shake it, you hear that springy sound. And eventually they created a rotor that can rotate 360 degrees, and that was the Speedbeat 916, and also increased the beat rate, as this is a 28,800, whereas this is a 21,000 movement. And to give you a better idea, this is an E875 JLC Memovox. These two have the same movement, and obviously they look fairly different. The thing is, if you didn't know any better, you'd think this is a standard Gyromatic alarm, because it doesn't have the Memovox wheel that you would use to adjust. And in both cases, the way this works is you use this crown to set the time and to wind the movement. Use this crown to wind the separate spring barrel to charge the alarm and to set the time on the alarm. Now, in the case of the actual Memovox, you rotate the wheel and you set the arrow to the time you want, and that's how it goes off. In the case of this, they used their old Gyromatic alarm design. So in this case, excuse me, you actually rotate the wheel like this. And you set the alarm by aligning it at 12. and the alarm sounds the same. Let's see if we could trigger it. There we go. And it lasts for about 20 seconds, like all Memovox, and you pull it out by stopping it. So that's the mechanics of the movement. Now, I don't have a tool to open up the Caseback, though God knows the prior owner or owners really did try to massacre that. But I don't have a tool to open the Caseback, but I did find a picture of the actual movement online. And let me pull up a picture here of it compared to the bog standard JLC caliber 916. And to be honest, if you look at the two, and I spent some time looking at the two, I just don't see any difference aside from the stamping and labeling. They look to be exactly the same. Because the thing is, if we go back to this watch, the reason it's called a Gyromatic is because that's a reference to a Girard Perregaux winding system that they had patented. And the original assumption was that that Gyromatic winding system was put into, or rather modified into, the Memovox movement. But again, if you look at the picture, it looks exactly the same, and I'm wondering if there really was any modification done to the movement. I don't have an answer more than comparing those two pictures, so if anyone has any other information, I'm happy to be corrected. But to go on, here's a wonderful example of the dangers of gold plate. This crown has been used a lot, so what happened? The gold plating has faded, has worn away, and you're left with stainless steel. Now, technically, I believe you can have them replated, but it's a pain, and it's just one of the many reasons you, for the most part, want to stay away from gold plate. Now, in this case, the crown is signed GP for the time crown, and it's signed A for alarm for the second crown. Now, JLC Memovox at the time would have both crowns signed JL. Keep in mind, it's quite often that the old Memovox models are going to have missing appropriate crowns and third-party crowns that are the wrong one. So, but it's a nice little touch. The other thing that you notice with this case, and it's also a problem with this older Memovox, is in the late 60s, early 70s, they tried to make the cases bigger in men's watches, but they try to keep the lugs super short. So what happens is the curve protrudes, but the lugs don't. So these types of watches need a curved spring bar and ideally a curved leather strap. Now I have a curved spring bar in these, but I don't have a curved leather strap. I only have one curved leather strap, and it really doesn't match the color of this. And the problem is, if you use a straight strap, it's going to rub in the middle against the case, and you're going to end up eroding the leather there. I'll have to come up with a new solution. The problem in my experience is contemporary leather straps are usually too thick, and they don't really sit well with vintage watches. And I've picked up quite a few vintage straps over the years, so I ideally would like to use it, but I don't really know how I'm going to proceed. So that's really the main point of this watch. Aesthetically, it's definitely not for everyone, even though the dial is really nice. In bright light, it's a nice gray, and it matches pretty well with the gold. It's an enormous watch for the time, and again, this is the same movement, and it's substantially bigger. And even though it's the sort of pseudo cushion case, if you look at this one, it's still really, really chunky. And that's what we have with this Girard Perregaux Gyromatic alarm. Now, I just want to go on record as saying this is the second of my two gold-plated watches. Ooh, there we go. I do think, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I do think the bumper, by the way, is louder than the newer automatics. But anyway, I think I'm done with gold-plated watches. The two I bought had unique movements or unique dials, and there was something special about them. But normally I don't advise gold-plated, and it's just not the easiest to wear. But the main point behind this video, aside from just giving some documentation on this rare instance of a Perregaux with a JLC movement, is to let you know and remind you that you could still get in on the ground floor on lots of unique and interesting watches from the past. I know there are lots of blogs out there and they like to drum up the price of things and it seems like there's a wait list for this, that, and the other thing. But the reality is there's still a lot of really cool undocumented watches that have unique movements, unique cases, and while obviously aesthetics won't work for everyone, there's still a lot of really cool stuff like this out there. And if you're patient and you're willing to do your homework and you can stalk the auction sites, go to estate sales, things like that, you could really find a lot of other things for a low price that very few people know, and you can enjoy the time you spend researching the history. And I really think that, for me anyway, that's one of the most fulfilling aspects of collecting watches. And it's something that's still possible despite rising prices in auctions and websites and eBay and everything like that. Little thing I just wanted to mention, at least for me, for collecting, is I find enjoyable, is the little asterisks in the history of watches. Now here you have two JLC movements in JLC cases, the two Memovox here. But these two also have JLC movements, but one is in an IWC case and one is in a Girard Perregaux case. It's not interesting for everyone, but it's, again, a little footnote in watch history that's unique, and it was really fun to research and learn about them. And it's, again, for me, particularly fulfilling to find when you have a high-quality in-house movement that's being used in another model, another brand especially. And that's obviously before all of these conglomerates ended up buying all of these brands, so it almost doesn't matter anyway. But obviously, this isn't for everyone. Gold plating isn't for everyone. But again, just a reminder, there's still a lot of cool stuff out there. Just take the time to research it and you'll be surprised what you can find. And that's about it for this video. And as usual, thanks for watching.